So, I know I'm talking a lot about Artfight prep and a bunch of things that I think are important to do before Artfight, but before I make beginner tips, videos, and everything, as we get closer to Artfight, I feel like it's really important to discuss this early, and that is Artfight etiquette in general, because these last 2 years I've seen a lot of complaints on the influx of users and people not exactly reading and understanding Artfight as an event, and in some cases I have to agree. And while I've not had a bad experience, I still think it's vital for this to be a relevant topic when it comes to discussing Artfight, besides just preparing for it and everything. One of the things that I feel like people forget about the most is that Artfight is not technically an exchange game. It is a gifting game. And I think it's especially important to keep that in mind when doing attacks and receiving attacks. Is when you give someone an attack, that is a gift. And unfortunately, there's going to be times when you aren't going to get anything back. And I find this especially common in beginner artists. When I started out, the people I attacked usually wouldn't attack me back, and that's okay. Over time, I found out that there are specific artists who only target beginners, and there are more than one way to get an attack from someone besides just attacking them. And of course, if you are on the receiving end of an attack, you are not obligated to revenge them, though that's something I do, and it's driven me insane these past 2 years. It's important to keep in mind just exactly how Artfight works as a game. And I've also noticed a lot more focus on points instead of actual quality of artwork, and while that isn't something that I think I necessarily care about as much, I know some other people feel that is really important to do things fairly and not for the sake of points, because again, it is at its core a gift to someone, and that you should treat it with a little bit of care. And I try to do that with my own attacks, just like talking a little bit about what I liked about the character and the process of making it, just so it feels more personal. That isn't required, but I don't think there's anything really real about supposed low quality attacks and then barring people who make low quality attacks, because what I found in most cases low quality attacks is just beginner artists' artworks and attacks. And I think I need to talk about especially just general friendliness over Artfight. Artfight is technically a competitive game because there are two sides that you are working towards helping out to win in the end. But don't let that drip into the way that you interact with people on opposite teams, because I've heard a couple horror stories about people taking that a little bit too far, especially during the vampire versus werewolves, and that's not what the game is about. While the teams are like a nice addition and everything, do treat other artists on there with respect, and especially beginner artists. A lot of beginner artists have been taking the brunt of the lack of Artfight etiquette recently, with them being barred from making specific attacks to people because they don't want beginner artists. Like, literally putting no beginner artists on your to-do and don'ts is a little bit crazy. Not even a little bit, it is crazy. Artfight is a beginner-friendly event. I was a beginner artist like 2021 when I joined this event. I was not really prepared in the same way that I am now, and I really do appreciate the amount of people who were friendly to me, and that's why I continue to do the event up until now. So in that same vein, if you get a low quality artwork or just a beginner artist artwork, because let's be real, that's what those low quality artworks are, it's always good etiquette to leave a comment and at least acknowledge the artist, because I've also been hearing a lot that people just don't comment on other people's attacks anymore, and that's a little bit disappointing. Failing to acknowledge the artist in general just feels a little bit like a douche move, because again, this is a gifting event. It is a gift to you. So, just leaving a nice comment on the attack that you get and then showing your appreciation. It's not much, but it means a lot, especially to novice artists or people just starting out Artfight. Another thing that I've seen a lot of is people complaining about lack of attacks. And yeah, I get it. But that isn't the fault of other people necessarily, because you, again, sometimes just don't get attacks. And it's really important, I think, right now before Artfight starts, is to branch out and find other artist friends or mutuals. The more people that you can get on Artfight that I think the better, especially when I was a beginner. Most of my attacks came from my cousin, who also joined Artfight at the exact same time as me. I think that's first off really funny, but also kind of shows, you don't have to get a lot of attacks for them to mean something. And this is an art gifting event, and sometimes you're not going to get a lot of attacks, especially when you're starting out and you don't have a lot of resources, and it sucks. I've been there. It's kind of weird to be dogging on Artfight as a whole just because you don't get as many attacks. And I guess my best advice for that is to look around, because there are artists who specifically only target beginner artists, novice artists, and just like other artists in general. You got this. And of course, just treat everyone with respect, because this is an event that focuses on artists and being able to connect with them and build community through this platform. And I'd say in my case it really worked. While I do agree that these past 2 years have been shaky, my general experience on Artfight hasn't changed, because I think all the horror stories that you're going to hear are not the norm, and it's important to keep that in mind, I guess, when starting out Artfight. It really isn't that bad. You got this. I have a couple other videos on Artfight too, just on prep, other things like animated thumbnails, whatever, and I'll probably be putting them all in the description, and I might just make a separate playlist just for this topic. But yeah, if you want to discuss anything Artfight etiquette, give some advice to people, my comment section is always open for discussion, and I love to talk with other people about these things. So, as always, that's kind of how it's been. And yeah, that's all. Bye.